Okay, so welcome to the Happy Mindset, the show that brings you insights, realizations, and lessons learned in order to help you to live a life you love. Today's episode is episode number 29, and today's episode title is The Path of the Warrior. So today I'm joined by Brandon Clift. Brandon is an entrepreneur with a background in men's health and men's resilience. Today he facilitates workshops where he helps men to tap into their emotions, their habits, their mindset, and his mission is to create a world of emotionally responsible, mentally resilient, and fiercely accountable men of integrity who understand how to live a life of purpose. So thanks for joining us today, Brandon.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine, Dennis.
Cool. So I guess my question is, how did you get into men's work? What was your motivation behind it all?
I was very fortunate from a young age. My dad has been heavily involved in transformational men's work since I was about 9 years old. Bit of backstory behind that. Before the age of 9, my dad and I had a pretty rough relationship. He was the single most angry man I had ever known in my life. And when I heard his Jeep pulling in the driveway, I could actually hear it from about half a kilometer down the street. When I would hear it coming, I would hide because I was so terrified of his anger. It's not that he was a bad person. He was just a very troubled individual, struggling in business and work. And he used to bring those frustrations home and project them on the rest of the family, including my brother, my sister, and my mum. And not physically, but just emotionally. And one day, he was supposed to be taking care of me. Mum had to go out to a business meeting, and I was about 8. And she said, "Don't leave the house. Don't leave Brandon. I'll be back in an hour." That's basically the orders. Dad said yes. He was in network marketing at the time, and he decided to zip out and do a recruitment meeting with someone, and left me behind on my own in the house. And when he came back about 45 minutes later, I hid under my bed. And for about half an hour, he frantically turned the house upside down looking for me. He ran down the street looking for me. He couldn't find me. Eventually, he went under my bed and found me hiding there, and he pulled me out, and he shook me so violently and was just yelling and screaming at me. And I was terrified. I was crying. I just had this huge, this huge kind of just this fear had just come over me. And my dad saw that, and he began to break down and cry. Because when I was born, his words, the day I was born, he became a man. And from about being a baby to the age of 2, he and I were inseparable. And for 7 years, we'd lost that. And he saw how terrified I was of him, and that was not the father he committed to be when he became a father. And he hugged me and he just apologized. And that's when he knew he needed to change. He needed to change not just his behaviors and his habits, but he had to change how he was turning up as a man, as a father, as a husband, and as a citizen. And that's when, he joined the Mankind Project, an organization that was created to help men who want to become better men, basically. To write a passage that's been going since 1989. And I got involved in the work when I was 23 after a very, very tricky period of my life. And that's how I got involved.
So were you aware of the Mankind Project and men's work between the ages of 8 to 23, or did you only become aware of it again at the age of 23 when you had your own event?
I was absolutely aware because Dad used to have all these weird, strange, hippie, esoteric dudes come and stay at our house. Okay. And so I was surrounded by men that were involved in the men's work. And so from about the age of 8, 9 onwards, Dad would ask me, how I'm feeling and what my emotions were. And so from an early age, I was learning to get in touch with my emotions. I was learning to trust him more. And I'm very happy to say that today my dad is my best friend, and we have an extremely close relationship. And so I was very fortunate at a young age to be exposed to that kind of language, asking, where are you right now emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually? being able to look my dad like in the eye and be able to speak my truth to him and him be able to do the same to me, it's really cool. And that's when, dad started teaching me that it's okay to cry, it's okay to express emotions. And so, I was exposed at an early age. And when I eventually got involved in the work myself, my life has never been the same, to be honest, Dennis.
Mm. In what way do you think?
In what way? I would say more than anything, I could answer that in so many different ways, but I'd say the easiest way to answer that is the biggest change I've noticed in my life is my relationships with people. And more importantly, my relationship with the man in the mirror. I have a much deeper connection with him. And so that has been the big catalyst, because as a man, I have a lot that I want to achieve. I have a mission that I want to serve, and I have a community that I am serving and that I want to continue to serve. But I can't do that if I'm out of alignment with the man in the mirror. And so I need to constantly check in with myself and be clear with myself to make sure that I'm not lying to myself, to make sure that I'm supporting myself in my mission, to make sure that the kind of imposter monster that lives in my brain is at bay. Mm. And so it requires for me to be able to do what I do and be involved in the men's work. I need to be really, really clear with that man.
When do you start realizing that was your relationship with yourself, the lies you tell to yourself, that was a key part of you creating out your community and having a message?
That it became clear to me. I mean, there's been a couple times in my life where it's grown stronger, but it really did become clear to me that I didn't have a relationship with myself the day I tried to take my life. July 17, 2015. And that was definitely a huge wake-up call to me, understanding that I couldn't even tell you anything about me outside of the external. I had ideals for the man I was and the man I wanted to be, but I couldn't actually tell you who I was because I didn't know who I was. Mm. And so that was definitely the catalyst for change.
What were the externals looking at that time? I guess it's important for people to know, like, what was your life like at that time?
At that time, I was very much struggling to go from day to day. So I was in a relationship that I was working my butt off to salvage and try and create something out of it. I was working 3 jobs while studying, which was just stupid and not logical at all. But I was always known to overcommit and let my ambition lead. And what I had basically created is I had created a world that was not sustainable. I'd created a lifestyle that was not sustainable. And essentially I was just burning the candle at every end. And my life energy was just draining. And I had it's just one of those things. I never identified as someone who wanted to end their life, but within a week period, I lost my grandfather. I was in exams. I had a huge falling out with my missus. I'm waking up at 4 a.m. and going to bed at 11 p.m. because I was working mornings and nights. And my dog had just been poisoned. So he was in emergency, not knowing if he was going to make it. And on top of that, Jon Snow just got stabbed on Game of Thrones. So that cocktail together was enough to cause me to have a panic attack and snap. And I got behind. I did the exact thing that you should not do during a panic attack, because I got in my car. And I went out searching for the sturdiest, strongest tree to wrap it around.
Oh. What got you out of that? What stopped you from doing it though?
It's interesting. That's a good question. The thing that stopped me was, at that time, I wasn't a spiritual person, and I wasn't very open to what else could be out there. And so what I did is I found this huge palm tree about maybe 300 meters down my gaze. And so I put my foot down. I got up to probably about 160 kilometers. And it wasn't one of those last minute, last second things. Like just as I hit that speed, I took my foot off because I actually had a voice come into my head. I don't believe it was God, because it was my voice. Like I could hear my voice as clearly as I can hear it right now. And it said, and these are the exact words, nah, dude, before you knock on that door, you need to leave some form of impact on this world, because you have done nothing but take the very best that this world has to offer, and you haven't given anything back. It's time to give. And that was really strange to me. I went home, went straight to my room. I laid face down on my bed and I began to weep. I mean, I'm talking flood. I was just crying and crying because I had suppressed so much sadness and so much frustration for so long. And I'd never felt safe enough to be able to express those emotions. They had just bottled up. I'd basically like repressed, denied, and hidden those feelings. And so when they came out, and I probably cried for about 20 minutes nonstop, just deep, deep sobbing. And then after that, I felt so clean, and I felt like there was a reason to get up the next morning, and there was a reason to stay on this earth. And I didn't really have much to go off. I don't think it was some divine intervention. It was literally just, a pattern break. And I thought, well, you know what? I can continue to allow these things to get me down. I can continue to allow these things to rule the narrative in my brain and rule the narrative that says who I am as a man, or I can redefine what that is and actually discover who the man is in the mirror. And then began the journey, dude. I signed up for the Mankind Project straight away and went and got initiated. And I've been working with the organization as a contributor ever since. And it has, and the beautiful part of it is I've gotten 20 plus men to initiate as well into the organization, because they saw a change in me, not in my words, but in my actions and my behaviors and my habits. And they just went, wow, whatever you're on, we want to taste it. And if I can pin it down to anything, it's emotional responsibility. I became emotionally responsible from that point.
Mm-hmm. So like, what were the steps then? Like, so the next day you had more clarity, you sign up to the Mankind Project. What did your path look like? Was it like uphill from there, or was it still like kind of twists and turns? Or
the best way to answer that is I began to simplify. I began to simplify my life. And so I cut back on 2 of the jobs and just stuck to one, which was a teaching job. So I just continued to teach. I then left my partner because neither of us were serving each other's needs. Then I basically, I'm going to paraphrase the snot out of this, but there's a Bruce Lee quote. And he says, it's not accumulation, but elimination where we find satisfaction. And I was always someone like, I've got more diplomas and certificates than anyone. Like, I'm the most randomly qualified person on earth. And because I was always searching for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And that's probably why I had so much on my plate. But I then changed course and like just decided to simplify things. And it just, I have a little mantra. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. And that's where it all began. I just started with the man in the mirror. Were there specific action steps outside of just simplifying my life? I think the thing that kept me going more than anything was every single week for the past 4 years, I've sat in a men's circle and shared my emotions, shared my feelings, and helped facilitate other men through those processes. And that's what I like to call emotional accountability. I'd say probably that's been the most pertinent part of this journey.
Why do you think the group of men is so powerful?
Why do I think the group of men is powerful?
Yeah.
Because for thousands of years, we've evolved in tribes, and we have evolved sitting around a campfire. So, for example, after a battle, men would come back from war, they would sit around a fire, and they would grieve and they would process and they would do what they needed to do. If a warrior went out and his brother got killed right next to him in battle, when he came back to the tribe, he would be processed through that grieving process. So the next day he can go back to battle, clear and clean. We communicated. We sat in a circle with one another. Now we don't communicate. Now we don't communicate our feelings cleanly. Instead, we'd rather post some pretty picture on social media to portray a reality that completely is not true. Whereas when I'm sitting in a circle across from my brothers that know me well, they know my gold, they know what makes me tick, and they also know the shadows, the things that I'm not proud of. And so I can't put a mask up on in front of them. I can't lie to them. They know me too well. And so each and every week I have an opportunity to clean the slate, to take whatever has happened in the outside world, bring it into the circle, and basically clean myself of the things that I'm not proud of, and also edify the things that I am proud of. And so I believe it's important for men to communicate. I believe it's important for everyone to communicate. And so my mission is to create more circles in this world where people can sit, connect with eye contact, and share openly where they're at and what's going on for them. It's vitally important.
You think in that processing, you get to simplify your life better as well, to find out what your priorities are. And I guess for me there, it's like when you talk about this more, you find more language for it and you're able to actually assimilate and comprehend stuff that you wouldn't be able to if you didn't just talk it out. And I think there's also the time and space element. Like if you're in a group of like-minded guys, you're all there with the same purpose, so there's a time and space for everybody to talk. And is that kind of the process there? Or
Absolutely. The whole idea of creating a container, creating a circle, is so that every single man can feel heard, that they can feel relevant, and that they can feel significant. Because some men, outside of work, they may not have an identity. Outside of being a dad, they may not have a unique identity. And so, when I have a man in the circle on the carpet that I'm processing, I don't know what he does for a living. I don't know how many kids he has. He could be a millionaire. He could be homeless. Our circle has a huge array of different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, sexual identities. And so when I'm processing that man, I'm not using any of those narratives or those facts. If he's married with kids, gay, single, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's what is he present with? What is showing up for him in his life? And how does he want to improve as a man? So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the whole idea of the circle, so that every man can feel heard.
Mm-hmm. Actually, yeah, I just wanted to go back. Like, you think before, what sort of narratives were getting in the way of you having a more simple and clear life? Like, what were the type of narratives that you were caught up in from listening to the outside world?
That's a great question. The narrative that I was running was that I have to be successful. I have to be perceived as successful, despite what the bank account says. I need to date the most attractive girl, possible. I need to be always physically in tip-top shape. What I was doing was creating these expectations that deep down I didn't even want to satisfy. And so I was essentially creating a framework that I had to live up to, that I didn't even want. Whether that was my parents' projections or my high school's projections, growing up in a private all boys school like that. I mean, the whole thing about that whole system is that failure is the worst thing that can ever happen. If you fail, you're a dunce. If you fail, you're a drop kick. You got no chance. And so when I got out of high school, I just thought there's no possible way I can fail. Like, I'm not allowed to fail at all costs, which caused me to not really thrive or strive for things that I truly wanted, and really had me playing it safe in a comfort zone, which just wasn't serving me. And so what I was doing was I was living this dichotomy of, I need to be doing all these things. I need to be getting all these certificates and making all this money. But in fact, it wasn't even what I wanted. So yeah, it was definitely, I was living two lives.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that too. I found myself, I was caught in I'll be happy when trap. That's when I was like,
Mm,
qualification. I was like, I
yeah,
need to get to the promotion, that kind of thing. It's an insane
absolutely.
thing to fall into. Yeah.
It's tough because then we don't celebrate along the way. We don't look at the little wins. We just spend all the time looking at the top of the mountain, telling ourselves that we're not at the top of the mountain, rather than thinking about all the amazing things that happen at Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4 before we even get to the peak, and all the growth that happens along the way.
Mm.
The successes, the losses, the trials, the triumphs, the tribulations, they're all so necessary to create the fabric of our identity and who we are. Yet most of us want to skip all of that and get to the top of the mountain in 5 days, 5 hours,
Yeah.
you know.
It's expectations, yeah. So I hope you're enjoying today's episode so far. If you're somebody in their 30s, a professional looking for more meaning, purpose and direction in their life, then head on over to Facebook, search for The Happy Mindset. There you'll find a group of people looking to grow, looking to uncover their blind spots and looking to get more out of life. Alternatively, you can head over to thehappymindset.com. There you'll find a way to contact me. We can work one-to-one. I'll help you to move in the direction that is for you. If you're enjoying today's episode, I greatly appreciate it. At the end, if you could leave a review and a rating so that other people can find the podcast and benefit from the information that we're sharing here. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. How did your relationship with failure evolve then? Like, you had a relationship there where it was like you couldn't fail at all. How has it evolved now, like in hindsight?
That's a great question. It's a work in progress. It is a work in progress. You know, there are times where my self-belief is so high that I can just charge forward, cop blows. You know, I'm just looking at the wins that are going to happen along the way. And then there are other moments that I have overthunk myself into inaction and stagnation. And so for me, I mean, my business coach, when I had my gym in Australia, my business coach, he said, Brandon, your business is the epitome of falling from the failure tree and smacking every branch. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a successful business and I was able to sell it and able to now, you know, basically travel the world and work via a laptop, which is nice. But that whole thing was built around failures. And there's almost something to be said for blind faith and stubbornness, because when I'm in those places of blind faith and being a stubborn son of a gun, like, I achieve some of my best work, and it usually comes with more losses in the loss column than wins in the win column. And so it's something that I'm still working on. I think I'll always work on that. Again, the conditioning is so deep that failure is horrible and the worst thing that can happen. So,
So actually, you mentioned there about your gym, because you sold your gym when it was at its peak and you went to travel the world. Like, how did you muster the courage to do that? And was that a difficult decision to make?
Well, it wasn't a difficult decision to make because I made it literally over a weekend. But it was definitely not a possibility in the days prior, like where my headset was at, where my mindset was at. So basically, a bit of context to that, I was just about to sign a lease for my gym for the next location. I was about to put an offer in on a house. I was getting ready to settle in and start doing the adult thing. You know, I'm 25. It's time to get a house. It's time to, you know, put this business where it needs to be. And I had staff working for me at the time. And one thing, I wasn't facing the facts. I had created a world that looked pretty, that made me look successful, that I thought I was happy with. But deep down, I was just very unhappy. You know, my closest friends said to me, Brandon, you never smile. And when you do, it's not genuine. And they caught me out. It was true. I was telling myself that it was everything that I wanted, but in fact, I wasn't happy at all. But I guess I had put so much into it. I've invested so much of myself into it that I felt that if I got rid of it, I would be a nobody. So essentially, I had wrapped my entire identity around my business and my social image and my social equity that I'd built up in my hometown. And one weekend, I went up to a new warrior training for the Mankind Project, and I had a really key role in that training. And I was in what's called a purification and renewal ceremony, which is like a Native American sweat lodge. And during the sweat, I had this huge, huge experience and this massive vision. And I, basically came out of the sweat lodge. I've got to go. Obviously, there's more to that story. I want to respect the time here, but I got to go. And within 4 days, I did a Facebook Live and said, I'm selling everything, my car, my business, almost all of my possessions, bar some clothes and my dog. And took off, bought a one-way ticket to South America, and just spent the past 5 months traveling around. And I've just landed in the United States after that journey. So it was about 6 months ago that I finally pulled the plug and took off, and I haven't looked back since.
What was the key thing you learned from your journey around South America?
The key thing that I learned from my journey in South America. Well, I don't know how many of your listeners are interested in plant medicine and some alternative means of healing. But the biggest thing that I learned in South America was how to love myself. That's one thing I learned very hard and very fast, was that I had an inability to show myself compassion and love, which in turn meant no one around me who did love me and care for me. No one could break through and really allow me to feel how they felt. Now, someone would tell me that they love me or I did something for them and that I had a huge impact on their life, and my brain would register that and go, oh, that's nice. But my heart wouldn't feel a thing. And that's kind of when I knew something was wrong. That was definitely one of the catalysts for me to leave. But I went to the Amazon in Peru, went to a shaman, and over 8 days did 4 ayahuasca ceremonies. And Mother Ayahuasca, and she showed me how to love myself, man. I felt it for the first time, and I haven't looked back since, because self-love isn't one of those things that you just pick up and you have forever. You know, it's important for me to understand I've got 25 years of this habit, which has been not loving myself. And so for me to build that self-love and cultivate that self-love, it's a practice, a daily practice, and it will definitely take more time, and there's more growth there to be done.
How does that manifest itself when you have shifted more towards self-love and broken that habit? Like, as a man, what is it? Because I think there's a lot of misperception around what self-love is. So what self-love is. So how is it manifested in your own life, that acceptance of yourself and that love for yourself?
For me, it manifests in the form of integrity. Because when I can look at myself in the mirror, in the eyes, and not flinch, know that I'm not fooling myself, know that I'm not trying to lie to myself, that I'm actually clear and present with what my reality is. You know, for me to be able to love myself is for me to be able to look in the mirror and say, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I forgive you for your mistakes. And to actually feel that. Easier said than done. But for me, it all comes with alignment and integrity. So to be in alignment with my mission, to be in alignment with my purpose in life, and to be crystal clear on where it is that I'm going and the choices that I make with the powers that I have.
Explanation. Actually, the clarity of vision that you have, how far into the future do you need to be clear on?
I only need to be clear on the next 6 months. You know, I'm very fortunate to be 25. You know, I don't have any children. I'm in a committed relationship with a very beautiful woman. I have a dog and I have a mission, and that's about it. That's all I need to satisfy. And so for me, in the next 6 months, we've got a lot going on, and anything past that will naturally manifest the way it needs to, because I'm of the belief that master plans never go to plan.
Me too.
Nice to have an idea of the direction, but all in all, you know, as long as I can, again, wake up every day, look in the mirror and be in alignment with that man, I'm good. Life's good. It's gravy.
Makes sense. Yeah. No, that's why I asked the question, because my own experience has been, I think the mission will serve as like a filter for how you move in life. But to actually plan it, it's like I can plan a few months ahead, but I can't. There's so many external variables for me to kind of go, this is my year plan here.
Could be different. I mean, if I had children, or say I had, you know, a mortgage, then then I've got some grounding to base my vision off. But I'm fortunate to not have those things. So I was very close. I nearly did get one. But you know, I'm not a child, but a mortgage. So it's one of those things where, you I have the beautiful luxury of choice, as we all have, to focus my energy and my passions and my drive and my superpowers towards what's important for me right now in this stage of my life, and that is serving my current mission.
So actually, the path of the warrior, can you talk a little bit about what you do on that and how you help men to find their own hero's journey?
Absolutely. So the reason why I decided to launch the Path of the Warrior is it's something that I've been building for about 2.5 years, and it was something that I always wanted to launch. I think one of the reasons why, despite the success of my gym, I was always unsatisfied because the work I really wanted to do wasn't in weight loss. It was in helping men. And having had my life change so deeply with this work, and having now been involved deeply in men's work for 4+ years, I now have this desire to pay it forward and to help other men, learn how to communicate their feelings, communicate their emotions, and be more open in their relationships and speak their truths for what it is that they desire. And so over time, I've created these little processes that I've put into play, and was just doing it with friends and helping my mates open up. And next thing you know, I have CEOs and administrators and teachers and people in government that are wanting to that are hearing through the grapevine what I'm doing, and that want to get involved, and they want to learn more about it and talk about it, because for them it may be the first time that anyone's dangled out some fruit or a hand and said, hey, do you want to remove all this BS and actually have a real conversation? And so we've created a community of men that are completely committed to their vision and executing on their mission in life. And one of the cool things is, I think a lot of men, they have a general idea of what they want. They have the 45 degrees. They're like, my ideal life and purpose is somewhere in that direction. Where what we do is we take that 45 degrees and make it 1 degree. So you know exactly where the pin is on the map. You know exactly why you wake up every day. You may be in a job that you initially hated, but we will reframe that to be a job that is a well of resources, that is giving you everything you need to live out your mission and what that is. For example, we have a man who, he's in construction, and he's just about to get his builder's license. And his apprenticeship was so horrible. When he went through his apprenticeship, he was treated so poorly that his dream is to be able to own his own company and give up-and-coming carpenters and contractors and builders, give them an experience where they can grow and love the entire experience of what they're doing. That's his mission. He's 26. He's only just getting his building ticket. Can he do that now? Sure he can, but he needs to prove a little bit to himself first. And so rather than hating what he's doing with his building job, we've changed it around so that he loves it, because it's funding his surf trips to Bali. It's funding the launch of his building company. It's garnering and helping him really strengthen his skills as a builder. And so now he goes to work every single day going like, hell yeah, this is my life. This is awesome. This is fueling the vision. This is fueling the dream. And not only that, in the time we've been working together, he went through a breakup with his missus, and he's looked at the entire thing objectively and gone, wow, now I only have one other person to worry about, and that's just me. And so, through circumstances that most people would go down an extremely dark hole like I did, he's turned it around and gone, hell yeah, I've only got one mouth to feed and one person to care about. And it's been really cool. And, every man is different. I will never stand here and point to a group of men and say, you all need this. Because it's not true. Dennis, your life is made up of unique experiences that no one can ever experience. No one can walk through your shoes. It's impossible, because you are 50% your mum, 50% your dad, and 100% you.
Yeah. It's striving to be 100% me.
Yeah. And so you're unique. Your desires are unique. Your goals are unique. I can't sit here and project onto you what it is that I think that you want or need. It's about you getting clear on what it is that you want or need. And we just go off that. I think a lot of people really base their programs off positioning themselves as some savior or some hero. It's like, who are you trying to serve? Are you trying to serve yourself? Or are you trying to, serve others and what it is that they want to achieve while serving yourself?
Yeah, yeah. It's like serve yourself first, and you can serve others. And it's
Mm,
it's the relativity. Yeah, so when we start comparing ourselves unconsciously to other people, that's kind of when you run into trouble. The biggest thing for me was just like the time and space to talk things through and figure things out in my own head,
mm.
and that comes from just being in a space of people who are also trying to do the same thing.
How have you gone with comparison? What has your experience been?
I think to begin with, I thought there was no other way to live. Like it's an unconscious thing. It's like, I guess when you're in the school system, that's what you're unconsciously doing. You're comparing yourself to others and the grades you're getting and stuff. So that was just, I carried that over. And then it would have had some element of influence on my career options and on my subject options. I was always driven to French. I didn't know why, but the business was more driven from the fact that, oh, I need to get a job and fit in. As I pursued that further, I found that I was more drawn to the languages, which led me to translation. And then I got more into the mindset, beliefs, and habits from my own experience, my own journey. And that's when I started just going in a different path, and it's led me doing the podcast and different stuff. I guess it was, for me, it's just taken time to gradually shift. So I've been looking in one direction here for a long time until I started like realizing that I was on my path, and I've just been gradually moving this way, a different direction. That's kind of how it's played out for me. And since I started that process, I've been less and less inclined to compare myself to other people.
Mm. So do you feel like you're spending more time doing the things that you want to do versus what you feel like you need to do?
Yeah. And like you mentioned there a minute ago with the reframing, it's like I'm linking what I'm doing now to things that I might find a bit tedious sometimes to what purpose is serving, what aspects of myself is developing in me to get to the next level and to get to head more in the direction of what I want to do. So that's kind of been how I've been doing it so far.
Well, I think you're doing it correctly, in my opinion, because all of my staff and associates would tell you that I am not a numbers man. I like making numbers, but I am not a guy to look at a spreadsheet and balance it and do all of that business and reconcile. I'm someone who would rather much bring in those numbers, but every Sunday I had to sit down and do my numbers and tell myself, like, this is fueling the greater vision. Although I don't enjoy it, this is so necessary in fueling the greater vision and executing on the mission. And sometimes you got to go through the grime and the muck to get the calluses necessary to be the man that, I'll speak for myself, to be the man that I want to be.
Yeah, I think that's a fundamental piece of it. It's the, it's callousing your mind to certain things, just building up that mental resilience. I think that's just my experience in it.
I agree.
So how about you? What's the next 6 months looking like for you? What sort of projects are you involved in moving forward now?
So the next 6 months, I'm setting a pretty ambitious goal of speaking in 100 schools in 2019. Will I achieve it? Maybe. But it's a goal. I feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm getting quite fed up with processing men after the fact, after the domestic violence, after the substance abuse, after the cheating, after the jail time. Like I'm getting fed up with that. And where does it start? It starts with our children. And so I want to start. I've spoken in schools in the past, but I really want to take it to the next level and start teaching these things to kids to let them know that, hey, it's okay if you don't identify as a Caucasian. It's okay if you don't identify as straight. You are uniquely you. And although school may seem like the be all and end all and the end of the world if it's not going well, just know that there's a huge life for you after this. And so I'm going to be speaking in those schools, but a big thing that we've set up is we're taking 10 of our top warriors in the Path of the Warrior to Base Camp Everest. And we're going to do the 10-day trek. And we're going to be filming a documentary at the same time around mental health and suicide prevention. Because I've had too many mates commit suicide. And, that was nearly my story. And we're wanting to sponsor 2 young men that are really struggling, that may not have the means to be able to take a journey like this. And we're going to completely sponsor them to come and join us on this trek, to show them that they may feel like they're at the deepest depths of the ocean, but they can get to the highest elevation in the world, or damn near it. And so we're going to have a videographer filming the entire thing, documenting the stories. We have a gentleman who's son, his only son, took his life last year, and we want to sponsor him as well to join us. And we're putting out a call to action for anyone who's lost anyone to suicide in their lives, be it a family member or a friend. If you feel like there were things that you didn't get to say to that person, we want you to write a letter and send the letter to us. It won't be read, but we're going to take every single letter that we receive up to Base Camp Everest, and with permission, if we have permission, we want to do a ceremonial fire and let those people go, and let those those messages that you feel like you never got to say, let them go up into the ether with those people, so they can be at rest in your mind, they can be at rest in your consciousness, and you can be at rest with the things that you may not have got to share, or the things that you feel like you may could have done differently. So yeah, that's a big part of the mission. We're going to be doing that April, May, depending on weather and a couple logistics. And that's the next 6 months for us.
Cool. So how do people send the letters to you?
That's a great question. So my email is brandon@brandonclift.com. If you send me an email, I will be able to send you the details about getting that underway. And we'll start the process of collecting those letters.
Cool. I'll put your email below the video. And the other thing is, the two people you're sponsoring, how would somebody go about contacting you about the potential to be one of those people?
Yeah, I would love some support around that, because I've raised money in the past, like through GoFundMe and stuff, but I'm not 100% certain how to go about this. I am reaching out for support around this, because I have my strengths in this process, and I'm doubling down on those and trying to find where the gaps are. And so if someone has any advice on collecting resources and collecting those funds and the best means to do that, I would really appreciate that advice. And we'll start putting it out there.
Cool. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. That's a lot of stuff, and some great inspiration there. Some great lessons that you've shared with us today. So thanks for sharing, Brandon, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. The pleasure's all mine, man. And this is conversations like this are the conversations that I personally believe need to be had. And we should spend more time sitting in a circle, connecting eye to eye, and sharing what's going on with us. And so for those of you that, if there's men listening to this that feel like they want that community and they want to find a safe place in which they can open up and talk about their emotions, check out the Mankind Project. It's mankindproject.com, .org. Just check. I know there's a huge community in Ireland. Yeah,
you were saying that, yeah.
Yeah, huge community in Ireland. It's in 26 countries around the world. And I just got done staffing an initiation in Mexico, which was really cool. 42 New Mexican brothers into the work, and over 70,000 men have been initiated since 1989. So if you want to find your tribe, check them out. And if you want more information, just contact me.
Cool. Sounds great. How would people actually contact you? Your website and social channels?
Yeah, I'm pretty searchable. BrandonClift.com, Brandon Clift on Facebook, Brandon Clift on Instagram, Brandon Clift on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Pretty straightforward.
Cool. Cheers, Brandon. Thanks again for the chat. And until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.
Until next time. Thanks, mate.